Welcome to Hard Script.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. You'll get intimacy when I feel like it, she said, not even glancing up from her phone. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't even a moment. It was a line she threw out between texts like I was background noise, not a husband. She just kept scrolling, thumb flicking through her feed, while I stood there with the weight of her sentence cracking down the middle of everything we'd ever built. I didn't answer. I didn't flinch. Because something in me stopped working in that moment. Not like a system crash. More like a light that burned out, slow, final. Something died. Something I'd been keeping alive far too long. I didn't yell. Didn't demand. Didn't plead. I just smiled. And not the kind of smile people understand. It was a smile you wear when the fog finally lifts. When the pieces align and you realize the fight was never fair, because the opponent was never interested in peace. She wasn't trying to fix things. She was stating policy. She wasn't negotiating a marriage, she was enforcing conditions. And I wasn't a partner. I was an appliance. A convenience. That night, I didn't confront her. She climbed into bed as if nothing had happened. Rolled away from me, as usual. Her back was a wall I'd gotten used to sleeping beside. No warmth. No reach. Just cold geometry and silence. I stared at the ceiling, but I wasn't heartbroken. I was calculating. Not revenge. Exit. The next morning, I woke first. Didn't make her coffee. Didn't leave a note. I walked out the door without a word, without the usual routine she'd come to expect and feel entitled to. I sat in the car, hands on the wheel, engine off. And it hit me. This wasn't new. This moment wasn't a shock. It was the last piece of a puzzle I'd been too exhausted to finish. The late nights. The withholding. The passive digs disguised as jokes. The distance she designed but blamed on me. She believed I'd stay forever. Thought I was too comfortable to leave. Too silent to notice. Too loyal to act. But silence is never surrender. It's a strategy. She didn't realize it yet, but I was gone. Not physically. Not yet. But emotionally. Spiritually. Entirely. And when a man like me leaves, he doesn't take luggage. He takes his presence. She'd feel it soon. The quiet retreat. The vanished weight. The cold absence of everything she assumed would always orbit her. This wasn't rage. This was the beginning of a controlled demolition. And she wouldn't even hear the countdown. The first day, nothing changed on the surface. She went about her routine, coffee, emails, passive glances at her reflection. She probably thought I was sulking, waiting to be pacified, like always. She was wrong. I kept everything muted. No sharp edges. No dramatic silence. Just recalibrated indifference. At breakfast, I didn't pour her orange juice. Didn't ask about her meeting. I ate in silence, eyes on my phone. She mentioned something about her team lead, some tension, a canceled lunch. I nodded once. That was it. She waited. Probably expected a follow-up question, a smirk, a joke, something. But I gave her the same stillness she had fed me for years. That night, she put on makeup before I got home. Something subtle, effortful. Her hair curled. A bottle of red breathing on the counter. Like she was staging an apology without words. Like attraction could be reignited with props. "You're late," she said, half smiling. I set down my keys, walked to the fridge. Didn't realize we were on a clock. I said it calmly. Not cold. Just clear. Detached. She blinked. A moment of hesitation, brief but telling. She followed me into the kitchen. I could feel her eyes scanning my body, looking for signs of tension, hope. Old habits. I rinsed out my water bottle. Wiped the counter. "You okay?" she asked, tone lighter than usual. "Yeah," I said, looking her in the eye. "Better than I've been in a long time." And I meant it. She didn't press. Didn't smile. She stood there like she didn't recognize the man in front of her, and that was intentional. The next morning, I didn't say goodbye when I left for work. No wave. No kiss. Just the click of the door and the fading sound of tires pulling away. She texted me around noon. "Hope your day's going okay." I replied, 2 hours later, "It's fine." She texted again that night. "Want me to cook?" I replied, "Already ate." 2 words. Precision cuts. The next day, she made dinner anyway. Set the table. Lit a candle. Played music I hadn't heard in 2 years, an old playlist from better times. I sat. Ate. Didn't compliment the food. Didn't insult it either. When she reached for my hand across the table, I moved to adjust my napkin, pretending not to notice. Her hand froze midair, then dropped. She was unraveling. Quietly. Invisibly. And that's how I wanted it. She'd spent years pulling back, testing how far she could stretch the distance without snapping the cord. What she didn't realize was, I'd let it snap. Silently. Strategically. Now, I was the one setting the tone. No rage. No begging. Just a calm return to self. And that scared her more than any argument ever could. Because it meant she wasn't needed anymore. She was optional. And she knew it. By day 4, the unease turned into something sharper. Not panic. Not yet. But the atmosphere was heavier. Like she could feel something was slipping through her hands and didn't know how to grip it anymore. She started hovering. Standing in the kitchen longer than she needed to. Lingering by the door when I grabbed my keys. Watching me with a mixture of confusion and calculation. Trying to figure out the algorithm of my silence. You've been different, she finally said. I nodded. Probably. That's all I gave her. Because explaining would have given her power. It would have meant she still had an effect. I wasn't there to soothe her discomfort. I was there to observe it. Later that night, she knocked on the bathroom door while I was shaving. Something she never did. Want tea? She asked. No. Pause. You sure? I didn't answer. By the time I came out, she was already sitting on the bed, TV on mute, scrolling through her phone. But she wasn't reading. She was pretending. She was starting to notice the space between us wasn't just emotional anymore, it was tactical. The next day, I stayed out longer. Went to the gym. Took the long way home. Stopped by a bookstore just to kill time. When I walked in, she was in the kitchen wearing that dress, the black one. The one she hadn't touched in over a year. The one she used to wear when she wanted to be seen. Hair curled. Lipstick done. 2 wine glasses on the counter. I thought maybe we could watch something tonight, she said lightly. You know, like old times. I walked past her. I've got work stuff, I said. No tone. No glance. Just data. She didn't reply. Just stood there for a while, holding her own glass like a prop in a play no one showed up for. That night, I lay in bed with my back turned, eyes open. She was awake too. I could feel it. The tension in her breathing. The quiet weight of realization settling in. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't punishment. This was the slow withdrawal of someone who'd stopped waiting. She'd mistaken my kindness for submission, my loyalty for limitation. She'd built her comfort on the idea that I'd never leave, even emotionally. That I'd always orbit, even if she dimmed the light. But she didn't understand that men like me don't shout. We vanish. We study the gaps. We calculate the exit. And when we move, we don't leave a map. She reached out once, just before sleep, her fingers brushing my arm like it was muscle memory. I didn't pull away. I didn't lean in. I just stayed still. Because stillness was now the loudest message I could send. And I wanted her to hear every second of it. She made her biggest mistake when she left her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. Not because I went looking, but because by then, I already knew what I'd find. I didn't approach it like a jealous husband or an insecure man. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was methodical. I picked up the phone while she was upstairs. Just for a moment. Just to confirm what instinct had been whispering. It opened easily. She hadn't changed her passcode in years. Text messages? Too clean. No flotation. No obvious signs. That alone was a red flag. She wasn't stupid. She knew better than to leave the front door open. But I checked the apps. And there it was. A Vault app disguised as a weather widget. I tapped it. Entered the generic PIN she once used for everything, her birthday. It opened. Inside was a string of chats. Not hundreds. Just a handful. But one stood out. No name. Just a number. The messages weren't explicit. That would have been easier to dismiss. They were emotional. I feel more alive with you than I have in years. He doesn't even notice when I'm gone. I miss the way you look at me like I matter. That one stung. Not because she said it, but because I remembered a time she used to say it to me. I scrolled up. Screenshots. Restaurant bookings. A hotel reservation. Midweek. Out of town. The same week she said she was visiting her sister. The final message was from her. Don't text until after 11. He falls asleep early. I put the phone down. Didn't confront her. Didn't slam any doors. I just went upstairs. Took a shower. And lay in bed next to the woman who had already left me long before I ever picked up that phone. She was reading, pretending everything was fine. That was her gift. Pretending. Wearing peace like perfume. But now I had proof. I didn't want it for leverage. I didn't plan on blackmail or public humiliation. I just needed to know for me. So I opened a folder on my laptop. Named it Exit. Dropped in a few screenshots. A copy of the hotel invoice. Her messages. Everything labeled, timestamped. Not to use against her. To remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That the distance wasn't in my head. That I wasn't overreacting. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. Because now the story was complete. She wasn't cold because she was busy. She wasn't distant because of stress. She was gone emotionally, physically. She just forgot to take her things with her. And I was already planning the move she never saw coming. The one without noise. The one without warning. The one she'd only understand once it was over. After that night, I stopped asking where she was going. Stopped checking her calendar. Stopped waiting for explanations. She noticed. Of course she noticed. She lived for being noticed, by me, by others, by anyone who could validate the image she built around herself. And when that stopped, when my eyes no longer followed her across the room, she began to panic. But not openly. Not yet. It started with small things. She began hovering more. Asking if I needed anything before bed. Offering to grab groceries, even though she hadn't stepped inside a supermarket in months. I gave her nothing back. Just quiet nods. A few polite thanks. No emotion. No warmth. She wasn't used to that. She wasn't used to silence that wasn't submissive. I kept building the file. Kept rerouting my paychecks into a private account. Changed passwords. Canceled shared services. I didn't announce it. Didn't explain. Just erased her access to my life one login at a time. She texted me one afternoon. Netflix isn't working. I replied, must be a glitch. She knew it wasn't. She waited at the door when I got home that night. Wearing the dress I once called dangerous. Makeup done. Hair curled. Said she made my favorite. I sat at the table, ate half in silence. Then stood up, rinsed my plate, and went to bed without a word. She didn't follow. The next morning, she tried again. You've been quiet lately, she said, pouring coffee. I sipped. Said nothing. You're not mad. I shook my head. I'm not anything. And that silence, honest, measured, final, rattled her more than any shouting ever could. She started checking my phone when I showered, digging through laundry, sniffing shirts, looking for clues. But I'd already cleaned the trail. What she didn't realize was that she was the trail. Her choices. Her arrogance. Her belief that loyalty was hers to ration while mine should remain unconditional. She started texting more during the day. Thinking of you. Want to do dinner? Let's take a trip. Just us. I replied like a stranger. Busy tonight. Maybe another time. Sounds good. Each message a mirror. Each word a reflection of what she'd trained me to accept: distance, silence, cold efficiency. She was starting to realize she wasn't in control anymore. She was reacting, not leading. And that terrified her. Because for the first time in years, she was chasing. And I wasn't running. I was already gone. I just hadn't left the room yet. It was around this time she started watching me sleep. Not in a sweet, intimate way, but like someone staring at a bomb they knew they couldn't defuse. I could feel it in the dark, her eyes wide open, breathing slow, still as stone. Like she thought she could catch me unraveling. Like she wanted to study the moment I finally snapped. But there was no explosion coming. Only exit. She didn't understand that silence isn't always stillness. Sometimes it's movement in its final form, precise, deliberate, untraceable. And I was already in motion. I booked the consultation on a Wednesday. Lunch break. 15 floors above the city where I used to believe we'd grow old. The attorney was efficient. Asked the right questions. Took notes. Gave me timelines. Contingency plans. Strategy. She offered a referral to a financial advisor. I said yes without blinking. Because this wasn't just a breakup. It was a recalibration. She asked if I wanted the process to be discreet or aggressive. I said, silent. Surgical. By that weekend, my new accounts were set up. Shared documents revoked. My digital presence, emails, cloud access, credit lines severed from hers. Everything clean, cold, and invisible. She hadn't noticed yet, but she could feel the tension shifting. She tried to bait me emotionally. Said she missed how things used to be. Talked about taking a trip. Reconnecting. Rekindling. All the scripted lines people use when they sense the exit door closing behind them. I just listened. Nodded. No anger. No comfort. Just a man present in body, gone in spirit. That night, she leaned in. Touched my chest the way she used to. Said she missed the old me. I didn't move. Didn't respond. She pulled away like she touched ice. And maybe she did. Because whatever warmth she once knew in me, it was gone. Burned out. Not by a single moment, but by years of erosion, of one-sided effort, of watching love turn into leverage. The next morning, I left early. Didn't make noise. Didn't leave a note. I was starting to test the future, seeing how much of me I could remove before she noticed the space. She didn't text. Didn't call. But that night, she cooked. Played music. Tried again. I came home, saw the table set, candles lit, plates steaming, and I walked past it all. Straight to the bedroom. Closed the door. I heard her sit down alone. Fork scrape. Wine pour. A long, slow exhale. She was starting to understand something. Not because I told her, but because she could feel it. I wasn't punishing her. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was leaving, piece by piece, quiet as the grave. And once I finished, I'd never return. The next Friday, I packed a duffel bag, not much. Just enough for 2 nights. No announcement. No warning. I waited until she was on her weekly call with her sister, her laughter echoing from the living room like nothing was broken. I stepped outside, locked the door behind me, and drove. A quiet cabin 2 hours north. Rented under a different name. Paid in full. No GPS trail. No phone calls. And for 48 hours, I lived like a ghost. No memories. No questions. No noise. When I came back Sunday evening, she was waiting in the kitchen. Arms folded. Eyes narrowed. Where were you? I shrugged. Out. That's it. Just out. I poured a glass of water. Drank it. Walked past her. Didn't flinch. She didn't follow. Later, she left her laptop open again. Another mistake. This time, I didn't need to dig. There was a document open, untitled. Just a few lines. Something's wrong. He's pulling away. I don't know how to stop it. I closed the laptop. Not with anger. With understanding. She didn't want me. She just didn't want to lose control. That's when I knew she was losing grip and fast. I increased the tempo. Started working late, but not really working. Gym. Bar. Library. Anywhere that wasn't home. I kept my phone clean. No distractions. No evidence. I wasn't building a new life with someone else. I was reclaiming the one she stole. Then came the financials. I froze the joint credit card. Redirected the utilities into her name. Canceled the automatic transfers for her car insurance. She didn't notice right away. Until the card got declined at the grocery store. She called, voice sharp. Something's wrong with the account. I answered, flat. Probably. Can you fix it? I already did. Silence. She hung up. No apology. No thank you. Just the quiet click of a woman used to running the ship, realizing the wheel is gone. That week, I had the locks changed. Not to keep her out. Not yet. But because the old keys no longer fit who I was becoming. She came home late Thursday. Smelled like perfume that wasn't hers. I didn't ask. Didn't accuse. She didn't offer anything either. Just kicked off her heels, poured a drink, and collapsed onto the couch like nothing mattered. Like the whole house wasn't rotting under her feet. She didn't understand that silence wasn't surrender. It was demolition. And I was already halfway done. By the time she realized. She'd be standing in the ruins, alone. Still holding a lighter she thought only she could use. But I had the fire now. And I wasn't putting it out. It didn't unravel loudly. There was no fight. No suitcase thrown down the stairs. No screaming through walls. It all died in the silence she once thought made her powerful. She used to believe that quiet was control. That withholding affection, attention, answers was strategy. That a man who didn't fight back was a man who'd never leave. She was wrong. That week, I disappeared in plain sight. I started staying out longer. Not even late. Just unpredictably. Sometimes I'd leave the house without saying anything. Come back after dark. Calm. Unbothered. Once she asked, "Where were you?" I answered with a shrug and a single word. Out. That was it. No details. No explanation. No invitation to ask more. And she didn't. Because deep down, she was afraid of the answer. She started cooking more. Small things, breakfast left out. Favorite coffee blend stocked. Even a bottle of my old cologne that had run out months ago, mysteriously replaced. A year ago, I would have smiled. Kissed her forehead. Thanked her. Now, I just moved around her like she was part of the furniture. There, but irrelevant. She noticed. She tried to flirt again. Subtle touches. Comments about old memories. Even put on the dress she knew used to stop me mid-sentence. This time, I didn't even look up from my phone. That's when I saw it in her face. The realization. The shift. Not that I was angry, but that I was done. I wasn't playing chess with her anymore. I was packing the board and walking away. That night, I cleared the last remnants of her access, changed all the passwords, set up two-factor verifications, moved the last shared files out of cloud folders, canceled the subscription she never noticed I paid for. The next morning, she asked why Netflix was logged out again. I told her I had no idea. She didn't argue, just stared at me, lips tight, trying to decide whether to call me out or to pretend she didn't notice what was slipping through her fingers. She chose silence. She always did. Only now, that silence didn't feel like control. It felt like fear. 2 days later, I got a call from our joint insurance rep. Apparently, she'd tried to file an inquiry on the home coverage. The account bounced back. Her name was no longer listed. She called me right after. "You removed me from everything?" I paused. "You removed yourself months ago." Click. No screaming. No follow-up. She didn't know how to fight someone who wasn't fighting back. And that's what made it worse. Because the woman who once rationed intimacy like it was currency now stood outside a vault she no longer had the key to. She tried the last card the next evening. She sat beside me on the couch. No TV on. No distractions. Just her, eyes soft, voice low. "I don't know what's happening to us." I looked at her. Not with love. Not even with anger. With detachment. "You do," I said, and stood up. Left the room. Left her with the silence she built. But this time, it wasn't hers anymore. It was mine, and she couldn't survive in it. It's strange watching someone unravel slowly, especially when they used to be so certain. She had built her identity around control, around knowing everything, seeing everything, manipulating every conversation to land exactly where she wanted it. But now, she was playing defense in a game she thought she'd already won. The next few days were a quiet breakdown. She tried to keep things normal, kept making dinner, kept smiling at nothing. But it was like watching someone act out a part in a play they didn't audition for. She was reaching for moments that no longer existed, offering affection like peace offerings in a war she thought I hadn't noticed. But I had. Every cold glance, every rejection she wrapped in convenience. Every time she made me feel like an obligation instead of a choice. I remembered it all. She was unraveling, and not because I yelled. Not because I threatened to leave, but because I didn't. Because I stayed just long enough to make her question what I'd taken with me when I stopped trying. She asked if I wanted to go away together for the weekend. "Just the two of us," she said, voice lighter than it had any right to be. I looked at her for a long second and said, "I have plans." No anger. No elaboration. She nodded, forced a smile, and went back to stirring her coffee. That night, I started sleeping in the guest room. Didn't say a word. Just moved my things and shut the door. She didn't knock. But I heard her sit on the other side of the wall. Heard her breathing change. Heard the weight of her choices finally sitting on her chest. By morning, she was up early. Pancakes. Bacon. Juice. Like a 1950s sitcom wife trying to reset the script. I ate. Thanked her. Then left. Didn't say where I was going. Didn't say when I'd be back. Because now, I didn't owe her anything. That weekend, while she stayed home surrounded by all the things she thought meant permanence, our framed photos, our furniture, her plants I used to water, I was in a lawyer's office signing papers. Not a threat. Not a performance. Just the beginning of the end. I didn't serve her right away. I waited. Waited until the silence started biting her back. Waited until she sent 3 texts in a row and followed with a call. When I didn't answer, she sent a photo. A picture of us at some old wedding. Her caption read, "I miss this." I stared at it. Not with sadness. Not with nostalgia. With clarity. Because I remembered that night too. I remembered how she smiled at me in front of people, then refused to touch me in the hotel room after. I remembered being proud of her, while she looked past me. I remembered loving someone who treated me like background noise. So I deleted the photo. Didn't reply. Didn't react. Just added one more reminder to the vault of reasons I stopped waiting. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of realizing she already had. I saw her one last time. Not by design. Just one of those accidental crossings the universe throws at you when it wants to see if you've really healed. I was walking out of a bookstore, coffee in hand, sunlight on my face. I had just wrapped up a conversation with someone new. Her name was Natalie. Bright eyes. Steady presence. No performance. Just presence. We were laughing. Real laughter. The kind that makes your shoulders relax, that doesn't ask for anything in return. And then I saw her, My ex, standing across the street. Frozen, like the world had stopped spinning. She looked different. Smaller somehow. Not in size, but in gravity. Like the air around her didn't move the same anymore. She crossed slowly, unsure, sunglasses hiding eyes that once used to roll with disdain. When she got close, she pulled them off. No makeup, no mask, just the face of a woman who had run out of illusions. "Hey," she said. Soft. I nodded. "Hey." She glanced at Natalie, who had already stepped away respectfully. Then back at me. "You look good." "I am." Silence. I've been meaning to say something. I waited. Not because I needed it. Because I wanted to see if she still thought words held power. "I was selfish," she finally said. "I pushed you away. Thought you'd never leave." I nodded. "You were right about one thing." Her eyes met mine, hopeful. "What's that?" "That I'd never leave the way you expected." She blinked. "I thought you'd always come back." "I did. Once. Twice. Too many times." She swallowed. Her voice cracked. "I didn't think you'd disappear like this. It's like you never existed." "That's the point," I said. "You turned me invisible while I was still here. Now I'm just returning the favor." Her lip trembled. Not enough for pity. Just enough to know she felt the echo of what she lost. "I lost everything," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You threw it away." And with that, I turned. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just done. Natalie joined me a few steps ahead. Said nothing. Just walked beside me like she'd always belonged there. I didn't look back. Because closure isn't something you owe someone who buried you in silence. It's something you give yourself. When you stop digging through ashes for signs of fire. She used to believe I was too quiet to leave. Too loyal to forget. Too calm to vanish. But the quietest man in the room is often the one already gone. She stood there, in the same spot, watching us walk away. She didn't cry. Didn't shout. Just watched the only version of me that ever loved her walk into a life she was never meant to see. That's how it ends. Not with a scream. Not with a breakdown. But with the sound of nothing. A final goodbye that echoes only inside the walls she built. Because some doors, once they close, they stay closed. Forever. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.